Dr. Mike, thank you very much for coming back to the podcast. And today we're going to talk about something that was new to me, and that is Hydroheal. Could you tell me a little bit about it?
Oh, well, Hydroheal is one of the few companies in the United States that carries molecular hydrogen devices. Molecular hydrogen is a medical gas that is 100% safe, so it can be used by you and I at home without any medical supervision. And so I would say a decade ago or even longer, hydrogen water was very popular, and it still is. But today we're able to inhale the gas, which is more effective, especially for certain situations. So it's one of those things that is very effective when it comes to overcoming disease, including cancer, but also when we're talking about athletic performance or longevity, increasing your lifespan. We got plenty of research to support that.
And when you were last on the podcast, you gave so much useful information about biohacking. A lot of it that I knew but hadn't implemented, a lot of it I didn't know at all. And after that, I actually made some changes and made sure that I followed more of your protocols, and I feel so much better for it. With this, would you not even consider talking about it unless you absolutely knew that this was the real deal, that this really was going to make a difference? Because from what I can see, the I don't see any negatives to it.
Well, there are no negatives to it. Again, it's 100% safe. You can't overdo it either because there's a saturation point of hydrogen in your blood. So when you drink the water or you inhale it, the hydrogen is carried by the blood plasma to the cells, but the saturation in the blood is between 1.8 and 2.2 cc's per liter. So once it's saturated, the excess hydrogen you simply exhale. So all you're doing is wasting your time trying to get more in, but there's no possible adverse reaction. So yes, it's very safe. I would agree with you that it's one of those things that everybody can do and will make a vast impact on your health, on your longevity, on your performance. But I do still believe that we all need to work on some foundational stuff, which we talked about on our last podcast. So, we still need to, watch what we eat, take plenty of water, exercise, move, get a lot of sunlight. Those are separate. Those are foundationals. And the hydrogen will be more effective if we have those foundations in place for sure. Because if we're not putting out fires, then the hydrogen can do more important tasks, such as reversing biological age, preventing disease, increasing more energy in our mitochondria, and the list goes on. Versus, oh, I got to put out this inflammation and this fire every day, right? So I
Yeah.
still think those foundations are very critical. Actually, I always teach a 6-week online program called the Limitless Lab, and we're starting one this Monday. There's only 2 spots available, but we do it repeatedly where we actually go through all those foundations so people can take the elements and mold those in a power routine, something that you do 5, 10, 15 minutes per day that, make you feel better and make you address all those foundations that are necessary.
And I saw, at first when I thought Hydroheal, how do you use it? And I wondered if it was something, I knew it wouldn't be a supplement, but I didn't know if
Mhm.
it'd be a bit of machinery. I didn't know. But when I saw it, it's actually even simpler than I thought. So can you explain how you would use it?
Yeah, it's just as big as you know. So you just plug it in. All you need is electrical outlet, and you need some distilled water. That's what it runs are. So basically, it's an electrolysis device. So it makes the water split H2O in hydrogen gas and oxygen gas. The oxygen gas escapes in your living room or wherever you're sitting. The hydrogen gas you can then inhale through the nose. It's not a mask, it's just those 2 little things up the nose behind the ears, right? So you can just sit there, watch TV, or do paperwork or whatever you want to do. Or if you want the water, you can suspend that hydrogen gas back into the water, and it's stable, so you don't have to drink it immediately. So you can kind of keep it in the fridge or take it to work with you. Because people say, why would you still use water if inhalation is so much more powerful from a concentration point of view? Well, I gotta drink water anyway, so why not hydrogen water, right? So it still has its benefits also.
And there was something about the no need for certain things. So if you use it, you don't necessarily need to do something else. And one of the things that I noticed was the cold plunge, because I love the thought of that, but I've never done it. I think the closest I've got is the cold shower. And I think the reason is because I was a little bit scared of some of the negatives, which were when people have said that if you don't know what you're doing, you can actually make things worse. I've got a thyroid condition, so I thought, well, I don't want to make this worse. I know that that was just based again on hearsay. You also read the occasional scare story about cold plunge, don't you, where someone's actually had like a heart attack or something like that, and you think, oh, I don't know about that. So I always found reasons. Clearly I didn't want to do it because I kept
Yeah.
finding
Well,
reasons.
first of all, a lot of people find excuses not to do it because it's not pleasant, not for anybody, right?
Yeah.
And in order to make it a habit, you would actually need to be able to control, that cold. And so it's either
Yes.
you need to know how to get into a meditative state, or you need to
Yes.
know how to breathe properly and do some breath work to be able to do it. And so it's almost like a skill. You have to have a little bit of a skill set in order to do it. But like you said, there is still controversy even in the biohacking medical field on its benefits, because even a renowned doctor like Dr. Mercola is against cold baths, because he says, and it makes sense, we're always in a sympathetic state, right? We're going, we're stressed, we're running from the tiger, right? We're always in the survival mode in our society, and so we're always operating into sympathetic. And so what we're doing is with breath work and other methodologies is we're trying to get ourselves into the parasympathetic, into the repair and restful state. And guess what cold plunge do? It does exactly the opposite. It puts you immediately in a survival state, in a sympathetic state.
Right.
So there's controversy regardless on the benefits of a cold plunge. I don't think hydrogen is much of comparison with that necessarily, but I think in order to understand why the 1100, 1200 scientific research studies out there on hydrogen, which is a lot, including 200 human ones, why they show that it has a positive effect on over 170 common diseases. And in order to understand why it has such a positive effect on all those various conditions, is that you need to understand how it works on a cellular and even a mitochondrial level and what its properties are. So if you're okay with it, we'll kind of go over that, because if you understand that, then you know what it does to your body and how it can benefit you in those various ways. First of all, if you think back to school, a long time ago, we know that hydrogen is the first element on the periodic table. And that's because it's the lightest element in the universe. It only has one electron and one proton. And so what we're talking about today is not hydrogen H plus or H minus, the hydride ion. We're talking about hydrogen gas, which is also called molecular hydrogen, which is two hydrogen atoms in a strong covalent bond. So it's hard to break that bond. And that molecular hydrogen or hydrogen gas is neutral. It has no charge. So think of it as the tiniest molecule that we know, and it has no charge. So it can enter the cell. It can cross the cell membrane without any problems. And so unlike any other antioxidants like vitamin D, C, and the list goes on, they cannot enter the cell. They can exert their properties outside of the cell, but they can't do it in the cell. So hydrogen can get in the cell, protect our RNA, DNA, proteins, and the list goes on, mitochondria. And it also, because of the same properties, it can easily cross the blood-brain barrier and enter the neurons and the brain cells. So that's the first thing people need to understand, why it's so much more powerful than many of the other things that we do. The second thing is, let's go over the properties that research shows it has on our physiology and biology. Its number one feature is that it is a powerful selective antioxidant. We know an antioxidant neutralizes free radicals, and hydrogen does it selectively. What it means is it neutralizes the harmful free radicals, but leaves the beneficial ROS, reactive oxygen species, alone. It spares them, because we need those for cellular homeostasis, cellular signaling, etc. So a good example always is cancer, because what is cancer? Cancer starts with a mutation of your nuclear DNA and mitochondrial DNA. And that's how it starts, right? So molecular hydrogen waltzes in the cell through the cell membrane and neutralizes these hydroxyl free radicals and peroxynitrites, which are the two bad ones, neutralizes those without interfering with the normal physiological processes. So that's why studies show it suppresses tumors, right? Because it takes it on at the source within the cellular level. So that's the number one thing. It reduces oxidative stress in the body, but also inside the cell. Number two, it's a strong anti-inflammatory. And we know in the healthcare profession and even conventional medicine now agrees that oxidative stress and inflammation are probably the cause of all disease, right? So if we can manage those, we're in good shape. So the number two property is it's strong anti-inflammatory. It stimulates the NRF2 pathway. It reduces interleukins, 1 alpha, 1 beta, 6, 8, 10. It also reduces pro-inflammatory cytokines like TNF alpha. So the research is there that it drastically reduces inflammation in the cell and in our body. So those are the two top ones. Quickly, it also promotes autophagy, which basically is our recycling program within the body, because if things are damaged and used, our body tries to recycle them. And so better recycling means better homeostasis and balance in the body. It also helps with apoptosis, which is basically removing dead cells from the body. Because obviously we know that we make many new cells every hour, every day, our bone marrow, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what happens to keep a balance? We got to get rid of dead cells, right? Or cells that are no longer dividing and no longer beneficial to our body. But many cells, they kind of linger in the body and take up energy, take up space, take up resources without providing any benefit. And those cells in the longevity and biohacking arena are called zombie cells or senescent cells. And so, again, hydrogen shows in scientific literature that it helps promote and regulate that apoptosis. It also boosts the immune system. And so the list goes on. So now that we understand how it works on a cellular level, I want to finish with talking about mitochondria, because those are the energy factories within the cell, right? People heard that they're the powerhouses. They produce our energy or ATP through a process called oxidative phosphorylation, and it stores it in the form of ATP. But what most people don't know is that besides our nuclear DNA, mitochondria have their own DNA, and it has several proteins that are responsible for producing that energy. But while these mitochondria are producing energy, there's also waste. There's also reactive oxygen species, free radicals that are produced, which again could cause oxidative stress inside the mitochondria. So once more, hydrogen becomes the savior, neutralizing those hydroxyl free radicals so the mitochondria can stay healthy. It's protecting the mitochondrial DNA, and we can keep on producing that energy that our body needs. Because, you know, sometimes numbers can put things in perspective. We have about 40 trillion cells, right? Now, each cell has a few hundred to hundreds of thousands of mitochondria. For example, our skin cells only have a few hundred. More intensive energy producing cells would be our liver, our muscle, our brain. And then the number one is the heart, responsible for each heartbeat, right? Our heart cells, each of one of them has 100,000 mitochondria. And each mitochondrium produces 2 billion ATP molecules per second. All right. So think about this: 40 trillion cells, each hundreds to hundreds of thousands of mitochondria, each one of them 2 billion ATP per second. So it's calculated that we need all that energy to sustain the 1.8 quadrillion chemical reactions per second. These numbers are amazing, right? So we
Yeah.
produce, cycle 300 to 400 pounds of ATP per day. All right. So now, if we can manage and protect these structures inside the cell, the mitochondria, reduce that oxidative stress and inflammation, and we can do that on a cellular level, how do you think that translates to our organs, our tissues, our bones, our muscles, our mind, our brain cells, especially because it can enter the brain? And that's why we see, because it's vast impact on the cellular mitochondrial level, that's why we see positive effects on anything that's being researched, those 170 common diseases.
That's that is game changing. Obviously, nobody knows the answer because everyone's so different. But if you were doing this as part of a healthy lifestyle, could you be looking at possibly avoiding all of these major diseases that seem to be so prominent now, like your dementias? And I know that it'd be type 2 diabetes, all these things. Would you actually be doing yourself a huge favour if you looked into this in addition to a healthy lifestyle and making the obvious changes?
Well, you're right on it, right? Because these degenerative diseases, they don't happen overnight, right? It's an accumulation of dysfunction and mutation, including cancer. So, so luckily, I'm not diagnosed with any disease, but I don't want to. I want to live a long quality life. So, such a thing as molecular hydrogen keeps my mitochondria and my cells in optimal shape and neutralizes the free radicals that may cause damage that accumulates and causes degeneration and mutation. So yes, 100%, it's probably one of the most powerful preventative measures that anyone can take to prevent disease. If you're an athlete, it's the same thing because you recover faster, you're producing more energy, more ATP, less inflammation, so you recover much faster from your workouts. I mean, the list goes on and on. And from a longevity point of view, it even shows in research that there's three ways in that it will increase your lifespan and your health span. Number one, because of its strong antioxidant properties, it slows down the shortening of telomeres. Telomeres are those end caps at your chromosomes that protect our DNA in each and every cell. But as we age, they get shorter and shorter, which is normal response to replication. And when they get too short, the cell can no longer divide, and then it becomes one of those zombie cells, useless. So what it shows is that it slows down the shortening. So in other words, we live longer, right? The other thing that it does, it modulates mTOR, or the rapamycin, the mammalian target of rapamycin, which helps in the regulation of autophagy, apoptosis, etc. And it also has a positive effect on telomerase activity, which is the enzyme that can add DNA sequences to our DNA repeats to our DNA. So again, it slows down that shortening, counteracting the shortening of those telomeres. So even that research is out there, and that's because of the properties we talked about: antioxidation, anti-inflammatory, helping with autophagy, apoptosis, immune system. When it comes to the immune system, because we were talking about degenerative diseases and cancer, but even a cold, a flu, COVID, whatever you want to call those things, it has a vast effect on those immediately also, because it modulates the immune system, it regulates the T cells, it helps with natural killer cells, and the list goes on. So it also has effect on those acute conditions.
That's so interesting because no surprise at the moment there are all these viruses going about, all these winter viruses. To know that you could help yourself by using it. How does it feel when you use Hydroheal? Do you just sort of relax and maybe read a book or watch TV? Or does it feel like you're having a treatment?
You really don't feel like you're having treatment. There's two little tubes up your nose. What I do tell people is try to breathe in through the nose, right?
Right.
Which we should do anyways. And you can breathe out through the mouth, but be conscious about inhaling through the nose, so you get the hydrogen in deeper into the lungs and into the cells, but at the same time our nitric oxide sits here, and so when we breathe in the oxygen and the hydrogen, we also want to capture that nitric oxide, which is a dilator, good to dilate the vessels and keep things moving in our body. So just be conscious about your breathing. I would say it's going to be more effective, not that it wouldn't be effective without it, but I would consciously do some breath work or breathing, and you get used to that. But otherwise, you really don't feel anything special during the treatment. But after the treatment, a lot of people sleep better, they got more energy, and so the list goes on there.
And is it something that you would recommend daily, or can you just implement it into your routine? Obviously, some people have good intentions and then they use it every day and then every couple of days and then every week, and you think, oh, you're starting to slide here. Is there
Yeah.
like a minimum time where you think you can't use it less than that?
Yeah, there's no minimum. It depends a little bit what your goals are too. Let's say I got
Yeah.
a few cancer patients, so I'm going to do a much higher concentration with more of a commercial type of equipment that
Hmm.
produces more hydrogen per minute, and I'm going to even put them on there 5 or 6 hours per day because we are in emergency. It's
Right.
life or death, which is different than, oh, I'm healthy, I want to run my marathon faster
Yeah.
next week or next year, or I want to prevent disease. So personally, you could do it twice, 2 or 3 times per week. I do it an hour per day because, again, when I come home and when I wind down and when I sit in the couch, doing some emails or finishing up work or watch a little bit of TV, whatever it is that you do, or read a book, right? Or watch
Yeah.
some YouTube videos or podcast. You easily can do that, right? You easily can put it up your
Yeah.
nose and it doesn't interfere with that. So why not do it once a day if you have your own piece of equipment?
And let's be honest, you wouldn't do it if it didn't work because you know what you're talking about. It's your area of expertise. I'm sure you've tried some things where you probably had a lot of hope for something and how effective it would be. And then you probably thought, that's actually not worth my time. So for you to actually say, I'm using this for an hour, you're not going to waste your time.
No, of course not. And again, I usually have a few people around me that help me because I try to stay on top of what's out there. And it's a dynamic field. Things come and things go. And at the same time, when you go to those huge conferences and there's 1,000 exhibitors or at least a few hundred exhibitors, a lot of that stuff does not work. A lot of them are gimmicks. The people that selling it may believe it works, but so there's the process. The process is I get all the information from all those booths and vendors and ask some questions, and then when we come home, I used to have a friend that helped me with the R&D, research and development. We would contact the company and ask for certain information, whether it's a certificate of analysis, some proof of A, some proof of B, to make sure there's some science behind it. And then when we felt comfortable about that, the next step would be to actually purchase it or try it ourselves and some of the patients because many times I do so many things, I don't really necessarily feel something. But if you give it to somebody who's suffering, they are more sensitive to changes. And so they can say something. And once we give it to a few patients and they have a positive result, then we kind of are in the phase of now we can recommend it. So after that whole process of uh, uh, assembling research, then calling the company for some proven certificates, and then actually trying it on patients, there's not much left that we really trust at the end. But those are things that we feel that really can help people. And I only recommend the things I use myself.
And do you think that I'm always very careful not to be negative about our doctors that we see, like day to day, your general practitioner. Are they quite open to it though? Because I've had, I would say, more doctors that I speak to, just like again, your GP, most of them now, I think, are way more open to things than maybe even 2 or 3 years ago. Do you find that if, again, your patients that you're working with, if they've got to go to their general practitioner for something, are they quite on board now? Do they, are their eyes open more to us trying to treat ourselves rather holistically, understand that it's not a one size fits all, which used to be my big bugbear, which was um, that might have worked for that person, but this doctor doesn't seem to understand that it's not working for me. So do you find they are more open now?
Yes, I think they slowly are. It depends from doctor to doctor, person
Yeah,
to person. If your doctor is not even willing to listen or look into it, something you
yeah,
should find another doctor, right? Because at least they should be open-minded. They should be willing to learn. They should really be willing to help you out, or at least look into it and give their opinion. Many times they don't know about those things, so they say no because it's usually a liability issue too, and they don't have the time to look into it, and they really don't care because you're a number. You should leave those doctors. But I would say that a lot of things becoming more mainstream. Like I said, I talked about, I lectured about molecular hydrogen at the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. Probably there were 7,000 doctors there. So the doctors that are interested going to those conferences, biohacking, longevity, anti-aging, and they are getting exposed to these types of technologies. So I would say there is more and more doctors that are looking into this to help their patients just because it's available to them. There's more and more research on these types of things. And but it's just that percentage of doctors that still cares about their patients. And there's also a large percentage of doctors that are just burnout and they really have no more interest in helping their patients. So, if they're open-minded and willing to look at it, I would say yes, great. But if they totally shut you off and not even want to look at it, you probably may want to go see somebody else.
Yeah. That is good advice, because I think on the whole, I do find them to be more open, but you still do get some that just shut you down immediately and you think, I didn't
Sure.
even get a chance to ask. Just
Yeah.
complete no. But before we finish then, there was a great, now I think it was a website because I got a link to look at it. Is there a website where people can look at Hydroheal? Because there were a lot of videos, and I should say as well, the videos were a great length, because sometimes when you click on a video, if it looks like it's going to be a really long one, people can be so quick now to say, oh, I don't have 5 minutes, I don't have 10 minutes. But these were really short, informative videos. So that's one thing I would say to people, lots of little bites of information that gave you all you needed to know. So is there somewhere they can go and see it for themselves?
Yeah, sure. So the Hydroheal website itself is simply hydroheal.com, right? And so that's where you have a few of the units available, and you can get some information and videos there. If you want to look into my book, I also have a YouTube video and all the references, the scientific research. You can find it on Hydroheal, or you can also check out my website, which is biohackingunlimited.com, and go to the resources page and click molecular hydrogen. You get a lot of information there. But for the equipment, hydroheal.com.
And can anybody purchase it anywhere in the world?
Yes.
Oh, that's brilliant. It really did open my eyes. I think it's something that, like I say, I took a lot of your advice before and I implemented it. And I think this could be the next one, especially when I saw how convenient it was. So thank you
Yes.
so much. Yet again, you've opened my eyes, and I hope we get to speak again soon, because that was so interesting. Thank you, Dr. Mike.
Thank you, Elaine, for having me. Appreciate it.